Purpose of this video is to show you how to use the tool setup in all the different types of tooling with the ProtoTRAK RLX. It will also show you comparisons to the previous models. What you're looking at right now is a program that has three tools in it. It has a cycle event, an OD groove, and an OD thread. And when I select my tool table, this part will be no different than the ELX or the SLX or the SL control. You'll see that my part 0 has not been set yet and that none of my tools are correct either. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is start my tool setup by selecting my first tool type, then telling it what it's made out of, giving my tooltip radius, and then going to tool setup. In here, I'm going to take a cut, and in this case, I'm touching my 1-inch diameter. I'll put my 1 inch in there, and it changes to set. Now I face off the part, tell it that it's Z0, that changes to set, and when I push the return button, you'll notice that part 0 is now known. It says set, and it is green. It also says to the right that I used a library tool to do so. Even though this isn't a tool library tool yet, it's assuming it's going to be. So you'll notice at this point that it's all set up. I can just add it to the library. The other thing I can do is give it a library tool number, which allows me to use it with or without a program. And my library tools start at number 101 and go all the way to 199. Let's go back to my second tool. I'm going to do an OD groove. It's also carbide. It has no radius, but it has a width of 0.93. And when I go to my tool table, again, I touch off the 1-inch diameter, Z0, push return, add to library. Give it a number, 102. I should also point out that when you have tools in your library, they will actually be in the order of alphabetical order, whereas in your program tools, they'll be in the order of usage. So therefore, they may not be in the right order as far as the way you number them, but I like to number them in accordance with how I use them here. So I got one more tool to go. It is my OD thread tool. It's also carbide. And when I go to tool setup, I touch it off the 1-inch in Z0, push return, add it to the library, and give it a number. If you use this scenario, you will never have a problem because every tool will know where every other tool is, because if we start out with knowing the part 0, everything I add will turn green and I can add it to the library or not at your convenience, however you want to do this. Okay? The next thing I'm going to do is show you how you would do this if I want to set up the tools first. So I have to reboot, so please bear with me. I'll be back in a second. All right, so this time you'll see that I don't have a program in here yet. When I go to my tool table, you'll notice that nothing's been set yet. The machine has been turned off. My part 0 is not set, and neither is anything else in here. This time I'm going to start out by creating my tool library first and then bringing in my program. So I'm going to come in here, say tool number 101 like I did before. Go to my tool type, right turn face, tell it the material, tell it the tool tip size, go to tool setup. Once again, I touch it off a known value like 1 inch, face the end of the part, Z0, push return. My home position is set with a library tool, and my first tool is all correct. Go to my next tool, 102, tell it it's my OD groove, tell it my material, tell it my sizes, in this case 0.93 again, tool setup, touch my 1-inch diameter, touch my Z0 face, push return, last tool 103, tell it it's an OD groove or OD thread, carbide, go to tool setup, touch it off my 1-inch, touch it off my face. My library is now created and my part 0 is set. Now I can close this, open a program or create a program. For time savings, I'm just going to open mine. You'll notice here's my same program. Go back to my tool table, and now I can add these tools and put them in the library or not, or I can simply take these tools out of the library. In this case, I'm going to do the standard tool setup. Okay, so I'm going to go in here, touch off this first tool, tell it it's high speed, tell it it's got an 0.15 radius, and when I go to my tool setup and I touch it off those same values, you'll notice when I finish that it's also green, so now I could add this one to the library. Another way that I could do this is I could simply come in here and say, you know what, this OD groove tool, that I have in my library will actually work in my program. So let's just call that tool number 2 and transfer it from the library into the tools for the program. Same thing with the OD thread, tell it that's going to work for tool number 3. And you'll notice I have 2 ways of setting up tools. And if I do add another tool to the library, I want to stay consistent by giving it a tool number so I can use it in the DRO. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is show you a different scenario on how to maneuver this. So bear with me again, I'm going to have to reboot. Okay, this time I got a little different scenario. If you look at my tool table, I still have my library, but my part 0 has not been set yet, right? So I want to make a program. In this case, I'm just going to open mine up again. And you'll notice when I go to the tool table that it's asking me where these tools are going to come from. The best way to use this is, of course, to set my part 0 first, just like I would in any of our previous products. So I'm going to close the tool table. I'm going to go to DRO mode, and I'm going to call up tool number 101. Any tool in my library will work for this, but now I'm going to go take a cut or touch off my known value and tell it X is at 1 inch and Z is at 0. And you'll see when I go back to my tool table that once again, my part 0 is set, therefore my library works, and now I can either set these up new, add them to the library, or not. Just could set them up new and just use them and erase them when I'm done. Or I could simply import them again like I did in a previous part and just tell it which tools are which from the library and put them in the program, like so. The next thing I'm going to do is show you how to set up tools not using the library or the home position from the library. But again, I got to reboot, so I'll be right back. Okay, this next scenario, I highly recommend that you do not use this. I think the best way to use the control at all times is to start out with a known tool that matches your library. So first thing you turn the machine on, go to DRO, pull up a library tool, set your 0. Now your part 0 and your library are all consistent and everything will work the way you're used to. However, there is a different scenario where I could actually open up a program and then go to my tool table, and not only is my part 0 not set, but I do have a library, right? And I don't want to use any of these tools. Maybe it's just a job I want to use, a different part 0. I want to set up these tools, run it once, discard it when I'm done, and the next job go back to my library. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and start setting up my tools. So I go to my right turn face tool. This time I'm going to use high speed. I'm going to use the same tool tip. And when I go to my tool setup, and I touch off my known value, I'm going to get this warning that says you are setting a program tool offset from a different part 0. Okay, so basically what it's saying is you haven't set your part 0 yet, but I'm still going to let you do this as long as you understand. So I'm going to say okay, and then I'm going to touch off my Z0 also. I'm going to get the same error, and I'm again going to say okay, and you'll notice when I push return, that my part 0 is set, but now it's a different color. It's in this bluish gray color, and it says it is set, but it doesn't say using a library tool. It also shows that my first tool is set and knows where that part 0 is. So now I would continue setting up my other tools, right? So I go to my OD groove, use high speed again, put my sizes in again. This time when I go to tool setup, it's not going to argue with me, because it sees that what I want to do is set up multiple tools using the part 0 reference that I have now. So I'm going to go in here one more time, do my threading tool, 1 inch, part 0, return, and you'll see that I can make this part all day long. I can add as many tools as I want that also coincide with the tools in this program and the part 0, but the library part will not work. Now watch this. If I take one of these tools and try to add it to the library, I'm going to get this error, and it says I cannot add that tool to the library because the part 0s that were used as a reference are different, and therefore there could be a problem. So first of all, I can't add them to the library. The next thing I'm going to show you is maybe I want to take a tool out of my library and add it into this program. Okay, if I do that, what's going to happen now is I'm going to say this is going to be tool number 1. And I'm going to get this arrow telling me that because the part 0 was set using a non-library tool, assigning a library tool to this program is most likely going to cause a crash. So it's telling you the smart thing to do is go back to the DRO, set your part 0 with one of your library tools, and then turn everything to green. Okay? it will let me put it in there, assuming I'm going to take that next step, right? So here I got a mismatch in my program. I'm going to close my tool table. I'm going to go to my DRO, and I'm going to pull up one of my library tools, right? So I pull up my library tool, tool number 101. I say X is at 1 inch, Z is at 0. I go back to my tool table, and it switched from bluish gray back to green, said set using a library tool. Now all of this matches your part 0. So does your first tool. And now I have two more choices. Either reset these two manually so they turn green, or select one from my library like I'm about to do and use the green tool so that I know everything's correct. I should never go to the run mode if any of these tools are a different color. Okay? Next thing I'm going to do is show you another scenario on how to get it back. Okay, so let's say that what I wanted to do was erase all of my tools, okay, and start from scratch. I got to give you a different scenario, so once more I got to reboot. Okay, here's another one that messes a lot of people up. Let's go back to our tool table. In here, my part 0 is set in blue, which means it doesn't match my library. I've got a program I've been running that's all blue tools, and everything in there is fine as long as I don't try to add them to the library. And now I want to go back, and I want to get back to doing something differently. And I realize, hey, you know what? That library I got, it ain't doing me any good, and my next jobs are going to be totally different tools. So I come in here and I erase my library, right? Now, I realize later when I get done with this job right here, that I want to go back to starting over with green tools and make everything match the way they should. But the problem is my part 0 is already set. Okay, so I'm going to erase this program because I don't need it anymore. And when I look at my tool table, I've still got my part 0 set at blue. And it's saying, how do I get it back to green? Well, the easiest way to do that is start out by creating a library. So I pull up a library tool number, and I tell it what kind of tool I'm going to use, and I give my material again and my tool tip size. And when I go to tool setup, it's going to tell me as soon as I touch it off that the library tool cannot be set because the part 0 was set using a library tool. It tells me to use a library tool to set part 0. I think this part should say in DRO to make it clear, but then proceed. Okay, so what it's saying to me is this. If I go out of the tool table and go to the DRO, you'll notice that the tool I'm trying to set up is already in the DRO. So I'm going to touch off here, tell it X is at 1 inch, touch the end of the part, tell it Z is at 0, and when I reopen my tool table, it will now be green. So my part 0 is set. My tool is still not, even though I used it in the DRO. So now what I got to do is make the two match by going to tool setup. Once again, saying X is at 1, Z is at 0, push return, and now that tool will work. I can add it to my library like I normally would. Actually, I'm already in my library. I can go to tool number 102, do the same thing, right? Give my groove, tell my material, give my numbers. Go to tool setup. Again, now it's already green, so everything's going to work right away. No complaints, no warning banners. Tool number 103. Again, go to my OD thread, material type, and my tool setup. Once I push return, you'll notice everything here is correct. So if I want to pull in a tool or a new program or anything else, everything is going to match and work accordingly. Okay, there is one more scenario I'm going to show you in just 1 minute. Let me reboot again. Okay, in this last scenario, what I want to show you is I go to my tool table, and my part 0 is set in green, and my tool table is already set in my library. I've got a new program to use here, and I don't want to use my library tools, and for some reason I don't want to use that part 0, but I don't want to forget where it was. Maybe I'm using a gauge or something for that. So I start to set up my program tools, and I come in here and I set my first tool, tell it what it is, give all my sizes. And now, instead of going to set up here where it's going to turn green, I'm going to close the tool table. I'm going to go to the DRO mode, and I'm going to call up tool number 1 that I just described in my program. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, okay, X is at 1 inch. And this time it's going to say the current tools offset is not consistent with the library tools. Therefore, the new part 0 will not work with the library tools. Do you wish to use this tool to set part 0? And I'm going to say yes. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing with the z-axis. I'm going to get the same error and say yes. When I go back to my tool table, you'll see that I reset my part back to blue. So now I can set these tools up using blue tools instead of green tools. Okay? So therefore you know how to use all the tools in the library, how to set your part 0, how to use your tools that are in your program, either take them out of the library and put them in the program, or start from scratch adding the program tools into the library, or just erasing them. You have the ability to use non-library tools and still keep a library. You have the ability to use library tools in DRO when there's no program. So as you can see, this is much more powerful than your other methods you had before. And yes, it is a little bit confusing to wrap your head around how it all works in the beginning, but once you get used to it, you're going to see that this is so much superior to the way that our other controls worked. I'm sure you're going to really enjoy it. I hope this was beneficial, but if it wasn't, feel free to pick up the phone and call me with any questions you may have. Thanks again for watching.